we have the opportunity to rebuild the entire internet on top of Nostr.
The goal is to have the entire podcasting industry adopt Nostr.
Eventually, I'm confident that everything will move over to Nostr.
There's far more use cases than we could conceive of.
You invent something, my shit gets better. I invent something, your shit gets better. That is insane.
The addressable market is basically the whole world.
This is the thing that we're going to use to take down big tech and these centralized institutions. This is it.
Nostr is rising. For those who haven't listened to Bitcoin.review before, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been making Bitcoin security products and fund devices since the very early days of Bitcoin. Nostr is a new protocol, and like any new technology, it's very hard for people to understand the why, the what, and the how. We are going to be talking to the people who actually build the things and try to explain to people what and why we're doing this. The show is not sponsored. We are supported by your Zaps and my company CoinKite. You can follow all the Nostr Rising episodes on nostrrising.com. Thank you so much for the support. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.review Nostr Rising series. On this episode, we're going to be talking about relays and scaling Nostr, both topics which already have been resolved. Just kidding. I have with me here Mr. Mike Dilger. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
I have Pablo.
Hello.
And Mr. Fiatjaf. Today we have the AI Fiatjaf because he's on time and sounding good, but we didn't hear your voice there. You still with us?
Okay.
There he is.
Perfect.
Okay, so we were just introducing you and you were about to say hi. Fiatjaf.
Yeah, I felt like before Pablo said something. So I thought Pablo was the one who had felt.
So guys, this is an interesting one because there's a lot of cool stuff happening. There's a lot of people that don't understand Nostr. And there's a lot of things that, we don't know yet how to fix or, we haven't crossed those chasms yet, right? So maybe does somebody want to explain a bit about the Nostr topology? It's a good place to start, right? Where does it go? Where does the stuff go?
Well, I think you could say it's just like you have a bunch of websites and a bunch of people connect to these websites. And these websites have content from multiple people and you have multiple websites. But you don't connect to all websites and people don't publish their content to all the websites. And the websites are the relays. So you have to know what website to connect, what relay to connect to fetch content from some specific person. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think for the people coming from Bitcoin, it's a very strange thing that not every node has a copy of everything. For Ethereum people, they don't understand Ethereum anyway, so there's no point in even addressing that. For the Mastodon people, just imagine Mastodon but decentralized. For the Blue Sky people, kind of the same. It's like Nostr is actually decentralized. But there is one aspect that I think is really cool, which is, Nostr can be many to many, one to many, many to one to one, private to public, and private to private. You know what I mean? You choose your network graph, right? You're not obligated to go anywhere to host anything. It's a bit of a mind melt, right? How does it work? Well, it works. and I think a lot of people who try to make out the Nostr topology, especially coming from Bitcoin on Twitter and or from other social media mediums, and they keep on getting stuck in one of the connection types, right? And they ignore the others. Because I think people forgot how to be willing to do the work of finding their own graph, right? People want just a masticated graph that just happens automatically. But if it's automatically means somebody made it for them. So that's centralized, right? So I just wanted to sort of touch on that a little bit. So maybe Mike, what's a relay?
Yeah. The basic topology of Nostr is simply that a relay is a server, but it's relaying events or pieces of data between two clients, or actually maybe many clients, right? And so there's no connections there are, but just ignore them. There's no, within protocol, connections between relays. Generally, a client puts an event on a relay and then another client pulls it back off of the relay. So it's essentially relaying the events between clients being your app that the user uses. And then any topology above that is app specific. So on Nostr, we have a bunch of different ways of using Nostr. People think about, Twitter or microblogging as, maybe one of the first things it was set up to do, but Nostr has all sorts of other apps. And so each one of these apps has its own topology, has its own way of organizing how you use these relays to relay the events between clients.
Yeah, I think that's a good model to go with. So, so essentially, like, the store and relay, really, like, it's a node through and tried model, right, of getting information out, and it's very powerful, and it does create the concern of, like, archival sort of like archival concerns of the data, right? Because there is no guarantees that a relay is going to keep your stuff after they gave it to you, right? Or after you give it to it, how long is going to keep it for? Now it's early days, a little different. It's easier to maintain all that data, but how do you guys see some of that ephemerality of the data being handled?
I think there has to be a relationship between a user and the relays that they use. And I think that there's more work to be done here. And by relay operators, I expect, well, I've always expected, you'd go to some web page and it'd have a marketing spiel about why you should use their relay. And maybe you'd have to sign up to terms of service and, sign up for a subscription and start using that relay. We started out being just, a bunch of hackers setting up relays. So we don't really have a bunch of that sort of thing yet. But if you want to have your events kept for a very long time, just picking a random relay, you have no idea what that random relay is going to do. And they may advertise in a NIP 11, which is a document describing some features of the relay. They may advertise certain things, but you don't have a contract with them. You don't know what they're really going to do. So I kind of think that relationship between users and relays is something that needs to, or that will, evolve into something a little more fleshed out.
There is this motto I like for the current world we live in, and I think is going to continue trending this way, which is storage is nearly free, bandwidth is expensive, right? So it really kind of aligns well with the relay system, right? Because the relays are not just sort of like broadcasting everything. It's a fetch kind of situation. You're asking the relay for things. And it's actually very cheap for the relays to store stuff. Eventually they'll have to charge or they'll come up with other business models. But storage of data is very cheap, right? Eventually everything ends up at rsync.net or Amazon Glacier, right? So moving on from the relays, right? So the relays are essentially like our servers, right? And it's not just Twitter, right, that we're talking about here. There's a million other use cases for Nostr that people are working on. That may be Git repository, Git clients, really will be servers, but they're kind of clients in a way. There'll be markets where your product offerings, your bids and your offers are out there. There will be DVMs, so you have the data that is going into a DVM, a digital vending machine, right? Maybe your AI translation request and the repost of that. And there's going to be relays that want to store a lot of stuff, relays that want to store very little stuff, right? It really, truly is like a market-based network. Would you categorize that way?
Oh, yeah. No, I think there's a bunch of different services that different relays offer. And I think it's a bit confusing right now for people because they just see or think relay. Oh, I need to set up some relays. But a relay is so general of a thing, and some of them specialize. But we have a lot of specialization going on in relays.
Right. Okay. So, Fiat, you often get a lot of criticism towards the network in terms of scalability, right? Do you want to address maybe like some of the low-hanging fruit here, like some of the most straw man things that we get about like why Nostr doesn't scale?
I think that the most common criticism is one that comes from people that think there has to be this global feed, the big global state that contains all the posts from everybody, and that has to be stored somewhere. And maybe sometimes they assume all the relays are going to store all these things. So they naturally conclude that the relays have to be giant and they will be very costly to operate. And there will be just one relay in the end that will have all the data. And that's what's going to happen with Blue Sky and Farcaster and these other things. But not in Nostr, because in Nostr, it's just like the internet. You have a bunch of websites, like you have a bunch of relays, and they don't have to store all the things. And the idea is that they want, like, we don't want a relay that stores everything. But yeah, there could be one. But Nostr can work with just one client connecting to a bunch of relays and download the data it wants. And there are no guarantees anywhere that you get all the data. If you want all the replies to one node, there are no guarantees that you get all the replies. But you get the replies that come from the sources you decided to fetch from. And yeah, that will depend like on how you, like, what heuristics you choose to fetch. But I don't know, I think people have some trouble understanding that.
Yeah, I think it's because of the, like, people just been normalized to expect that, you have a very top-down experience, right? Like, which is, say, the Twitter experience, the Facebook experience, where, there is somebody who holds all the data and the data is all there. Like, again, it's like this lazy behavior because it's centralized, right?
But it's a wrong, like, they are wrong in their own framework. They're wrong because, like, they're on Twitter and they get all the replies on that tweet specifically. But if that same person also has a Facebook account and they posted it on Facebook, the people on Twitter are not getting the replies that happen on Facebook and so on. Like,
that's a very good point. As a brand, we have to maintain a social media account in every freaking horrible website that there is out there, right? And then you have to have a person who has balls of steel that's going to have the patience of, like, responding the same thing on, like, 5 different networks, right? And then brands, then pay for Hootsuite and things like that then consolidate everything again with these APIs that don't want to let them consolidate. So it's all hacks, right? So that they can respond. So it's actually really bad for brands. It's very difficult to maintain your presence in a quality way, right, in all these platforms. So yeah, like, I mean, I guess I never thought it about that way. Like, we don't have the total social graph of your post because, I posted the same thing in 10 different social medias and, people are not seeing everything. So what's the difference?
Yeah, that's why we keep saying that global has always been a lie, because you can never have all the state. It just makes no sense, because even you can go beyond the internet. What's happening in the room next to me, it's not available in the Twitter database.
Oh, we can hear what's happening in the room beside you. It's not appropriate.
Okay, bad example. But it's this illusion that there is this one database that will have all the state that you could ever want. All the data is always local, always local. So in that sense, each relay its own local. You can query for data within that relay. And in that sense, Twitter is just a relay. It's just a, like, fucking massive relay, but it's just one relay.
Right. It's like the literal opposite of Bitcoin. Right?
And I think that's why Bitcoiners have such a hard time understanding Nostr, because they come in with all these biases and these expectations, and it's literally the opposite.
Yes,
literally, you don't want consensus. Literally, you don't want, and in the same way that Bitcoin makes all these trade-offs, right? Like fucking 10-minute block time, and a bunch of people say, "Oh well, that's not good enough because I want to pay for my coffee."
It's more like 20, but yes.
I mean,
double that
on average. Yeah, depending on when you send a transaction.
That's right.
Bitcoin makes all these trade-offs because it wants this to achieve decentralization and all these things. Nostr makes all these trade-offs, and one of them is that you cannot have this guarantee. Like, a lot of people keep harping about the guarantees. How can you have the guarantee that you're getting all the data? How can you have the guarantee that the relay is not fucking lying to you? And you can't.
No guarantees.
In Nostr, it's even like it's easier, like it's at least possible that you can get you can see the replies that people are doing on some fringe relay, you can that's still that possibility open for you. And like people on the room next to Pablo, they can have a microphone that is broadcasting the conversation through a relay, and you can listen to that too. All in the same Nostr network. Yeah.
It's so crazy that like somebody could respond to your post and you can't even see the reply to you, right? Like because your post now maybe lives on somewhere else that your client doesn't know where to fetch from, right? And this is all good. You know, that's the thing. This is all a good thing because the point of Nostr is not to have a centralized ledger of all the nosts so that people can go and make fun of you when you said the Bitcoin was going to go to zero, right? Like the goal of Nostr is to have a truly decentralized way of people voluntarily subscribing and posting to things that voluntarily decide if they want to take or not, right? Like it's a very sort of like different shift into thinking. And I really like this idea of it's the amalgamation of all the social media platforms together, right? Like, and ideally you create really good ways of all this content coming together for your clients, right? So guys, great. Right, like the information is all there. Nostr is working. How do I find my stuff?
I think people at this point listening may think, well, this is just a giant mess. You've got a bunch of relays. Now, the data's all spread out. How am I going to find what I need to find? If I can't find the replies, how do I find the replies? What doesn't make sense, right? If the way that we've described it so far,
yes,
I think we kind of have to describe a particular application and how that application manages this state of affairs.
Why don't you describe gossip?
So I'll describe the Outbox model, or what was the gossip model, which is basically how to do it for Twitter-like microblogging. So, kind one notes. Basically, people are sending. Imagine it's like Twitter, right? So what people do is everybody has to, for themselves, choose some relays, and they choose some relays as outboxes, and they choose some relays as inboxes. And then they publish this information about which relays they chose to the network, and how they get that publication out to everybody is, unfortunately, it's not great, but they basically have to just put that as many places as they can and hope people find it. Now, what happens is when I make a post, I put that post onto all of my Outbox relays. And if you want to follow me, you have to go find my list of relays, look up the Outbox relays, and then go pull my posts from there. So now it's basically like I set up a website at a DNS domain. And because you know who I am and where my DNS domain is, you can go to my website and read my blog. It's exactly the same model as Fiatjaf said earlier. It's like websites. It's also the case that if somebody wants to reply to one of my notes, they can put that reply into my inbox. And then I will always be listening to my inbox for replies so that I can see replies that people are sending back. But other people can also listen to my inbox to see replies to my notes. So essentially, you can follow people and you can follow through the threads. And if all the clients are following that model, you won't really miss anything. Even though in general, as people have said, there's no guarantees and you'll miss things.
Yes. So like this is one approach, right? Like, and it's a well sort of accepted that is like a good approach, right? We also are going to have more centralized approaches, right? So for example, on Primal, they have the caching servers, right? And Fiatjaf, you're going to remember this probably like 2 years ago, we talked about, like, I was very keen on my buffer relays. And like, there's this idea that you can have sort of like a third kind of entity that is in between things that just helps aggregate things, it helps index things, and it gives a more sort of like concise user experience. It is less decentralized, right? It is a little bit more centralized, but again, because it's sort of like an open network and voluntary, and anyone essentially does whatever they want, it's really cool because you can have all these different things existing in this network, and then people choose like how they want to exist in there.
Yeah, let me give a counterexample of the microblogging. I don't know if anybody's doing this, but Alex Gleason put up a pull request for what's called the inbox model, which is basically how you would do it if you were doing, say, a subscription newsletter. So if you want to see my subscription newsletter, I'm not going to post that to my outbox where the whole world can see it because I want you to pay for that. So what you'll do is you'll subscribe, and then I will send those to your inboxes. It may be encrypted so that other people can't see it. So then maybe every week I give a stock picks or something to people who sign up to my service.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi is going to love that.
Yeah, but that's
that's very cool. Like, you know, and that works a little bit with like the gift wrap kind of idea, right?
Yes.
It's similar model. It's sort of like a delivery solution for the gift wrap.
And so Nostr, the way relays work is it depends very much on what you're doing on Nostr.
Yeah, I think that really is the thing that people struggle to sort of like grasp. The people that are not quite there yet in being in sort of losing their derangement syndrome is this idea that like this thing looks messy because you don't know what you want to do with it. But when you know what you want to do with it, it's actually very straightforward. Like, I've never seen a network, a protocol, where people can build the things that they want so fast and still interrupt with everybody else to the useful degree. It doesn't have to be a hard consensus here, right? Because, again, it's not Bitcoin. Like, you don't have to have every single thing match. As long as, like, the parts that you want to match work, you can have a system which interrupts and everybody is happy, right? It is working quite well. I mean, it is pretty surprisingly, right? Like, it's working. You know, one thing we've been seeing now is the Pod 2.0 thing, right? It's been integrated, and that was like magic, right? Like, all of a sudden, all the comments that happen to pods that only, you know, specific platforms could see it. Now it's like everyone can see it, and they're part of a podcast release event. So in podcasts, you have RSS feeds, right? And, you know, with Nostr, you can have those RSS events be actual Nostr events, and then people can comment to the events, or they can zap the events, right? And then all of a sudden, like, the whole network graph expands to all your network. It is super cool.
It's not really working for me. Like there's no events that are being replied to. All I see are like comments and then an ad from Fountain with a link to Fountain, and there's no another event being referenced. So I think it's broken.
No, they're using the external GUID reference.
Yes. So I like this pod, right? We release on Pod Home, which is more friendly to all this sort of new nonsenses like Lightning, Bitcoin, and Nostr, right? And when somebody comments through Fountain on one of our episodes, it does show up on our feed. So our pod episode release is a Nostr event.
Yeah, but it's a horrible model, like, because if someone I follow comments on this thing, I see their comment, but I can't see what's the shit they're commenting about. So the podcast episode should have an event that the person is replying to.
Interesting.
That would fix everything. Instead of now my client has to download an RSS feed. That's horrible idea.
Yeah, I don't like that part. but like, for some weird reason, the comments that come to us are visible to me on the Bitcoin.review.
Yeah, because you probably verified on the RSS feed, you verified the top key of Bitcoin Review. So Fountain is p tagging the kind one.
There you go.
With the Bitcoin Review. That's why you can see it.
Exactly. So what I was pitching to Oscar was like, hey, for the pods that want to be Nostr first, why don't you do the Nostr first event and then you gracefully degrade into publishing that into our RSS feed and not the opposite?
Yes.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, we'll get there. We just need more pressure.
It's more bullying is always the answer.
Exactly. Bullying works.
Talking about bullying, what do you like? I was going to say that we don't have a clear way to decide like where to fetch replies from, and the gossip model doesn't say that very explicitly. Like I'm browsing some, like I see Pablo's note somewhere, and I want to see what people reply to it, and what would be the canonical or some ways of knowing from which relays to fetch replies to that. I think the normal one would be like to see which relays Pablo said are his own inbox relays.
Mm-hmm.
and expect people to publish to these. And then if I want to see what people are telling Pablo, I download the events from that.
That's the way NDK does it. So the way NDK does it, it will first, if I'm already connected to some of the inbox of who I'm replying to or who that the reply goes to, it will check there. But it will also try to always default to, if there is a relay hint on the e tag, it will also go there, because if there's a relay hint, it's likely going to be published there as well.
Like, one thing that I've noticed is that Twitter is the edge case use of Nostr. It is quite fascinating. Like, there's very few things that are as big as the public square, right? Like, most things don't have public square problems, right? I mean, the public square is unresolved even in real life, right? Like, what do you do with the crazies, right? Like, it's like, there is no good solution. So I think sometimes like there is this over-indexing of Nostr concerns, design, and conversation towards the Twitter replacement use case, versus like most of the other things are substantially simpler.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We start with the hardest one.
Yeah, we are starting the hardest one, really. Like, there is nothing harder than doing concurrent world conversation.
I think there's good reason for that, though, because I think the public square style, like the global with a bunch of air quotes, is the discovery piece. It is where a conversation, if I'm, again, listening to a podcast or reading a book or whatever, the comment, the discussion is where the discovery of each individual long form or music or an album or plays or whatever it might be, it's a big higher barrier to clear. So the awareness of that something exists starts with a discussion about the thing.
Kind one.
The kind one, yeah. Everything starts on kind one, yeah.
I mean, if you have something to sell on your Nostr Craigslist, right, you might want to post to your social graph as a kind one, like, listen, I have something to sell here.
You got it.
Yeah, and you see someone that you follow commenting about some music, and then you go there and you see the artist, and you see other people commenting about other music and so on. And yeah, I see.
Yeah. What other criticisms do we see about scaling Nostr?
I mean, the obvious one is who's going to run the relays?
Yeah, who's going to build the roads? That's my answer to that.
A bunch of commies love that line. Yeah, that is the answer. It's like, whoever the fuck wants to, whoever has an incentive. It's such a stupid question for me. I really truly don't understand it, but it's a very common one, because it's like the commons. Okay, who's gonna run this infra just voluntarily and deal with all the pain and all the scaling issues and all that? But hey, running a relay is way cheaper than people think. Way cheaper. And you don't need to have like a fucking SLA. You don't need to provide any assurances to people. Even Deimos Relay, that is one of the major relays, and it has nuked their entire database every once in a while. I think it's phenomenal.
And nobody noticed.
And it's phenomenal that it does that. BRB, which was this very popular relay run by a podcaster influencer, until he ran out of memory and said, "Well, fuck this shit."
I mean, it still provides a great service offering you errors. It's still running, actually, because it's FreeBSD. It's still running.
He stored everything in his head, in his memory. Yeah.
But I think in the same way that we're going to see a bunch of relays come in with specialized properties and kinds.
But you didn't answer the question. Like,
okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm answering it now, but no, like there will be different incentives for why you would want to run a relay. I might want to run a relay only for my community, for my, I don't know, for my house, or for the people in software engineering.
People do that for Mastodon. Mastodon is fully centralized. People host all that data and they own the users. Mastodon is just Postgres. It's like Postgres on a website. right? Like that happens to be bridged to other mastodons, but you can just say, don't, you can't look at my database, right? Like I used to run one that was the biggest Bitcoin one. It was hopeless, like fully centralized.
Fully centralized? Like what? How? What do you mean?
It was so centralized that I literally said to a hater, I'm not going to host your data. And I deleted his user. People were very angry.
Oh, but relays are like that too.
Yes, but it's a different relationship.
It's completely different.
We're so tolerant of relay failures, because you can just move to another relay.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, I have multiple outboxes. If one of them it does this, hey, I'm not going to host your data, and presses that button, all of my followers know about my other outboxes. So, and I can easily just pop up new ones, and it's so transparent within the way that system works that it's really very fault tolerant.
If the clients are doing their job, relays are just like electricity providers. You don't care who's sending you the electricity. It's just it should just work. And for each kind, right? Like there's a little bit more nuance on that, but it's just this idea that if we're building the relationship between a type of content, a type of client, right, and it could interchange its relays, unless we're talking about a more centralized type relay. That's a different relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say you want to have your private relay that is just for your company, that's everybody just uses there, and you're just using the Nostr model for it. I mean, you're free to do that too.
So there's also two different ways you can think about storage of events, right? Relays, I like to think of them as relays, which is to say they're just relaying the event from one client to my client. And I never expect them to store anything for any particular length of time. And if they fail, who cares? I'll just use a different one. But you could also just say, my client, maybe it's an ephemeral, doesn't even have storage, and it expects the relay to store everything. Well, in that case, you better make sure you've got a good relationship with the relay, because that's where all your stuff is. So it's the protocol's open to all these different ways of doing it.
I know it's hard for freedom people to understand freedom. So like what others? So we have the my roads, we have the topology. What else do we get in terms of like actual? Because I see a lot of people waving their hands. It's just like obviously they just absolutely never even bother to read. I'm not going to address those. Time will address those. Like any other sort of like valid or at least like a valid question, maybe an obvious answer, but at least like an interesting question that we get about Nostr.
I don't know if you get that, but we have the actual problem, which is the spam. Like if you're using a bunch of free open relays, there will be someone spamming them. And when you fetch the replies to someone, you see a bunch of replies spam that could be targeted or could be just some guy. I don't know what's the solution to that. Some people say that you should download everything and then you filter out locally using a web of trust or some other criteria. I think it's more like the fix is more like on the relay side. The relays should have a way to defend against the spam, and the clients should somehow choose relays that do that better for the specific task of fetching replies. Or one other option is like if I'm reading from Pablo's read relays, like if I want to see the comments sent to Pablo and I connect to the relay that Pablo chose, and I get a bunch of spam, then that's Pablo's fault. Pablo should pick other relays, and I won't read his replies section anymore because it's polluted. I don't know what the solution is.
That's a good point.
I don't think there'll be like a solution to rule them all, right? Like it's like different kinds of spam would be dealt differently. We could have Bloom filters, right? So you can have like essentially like your graph filtering when you do the query of the relay. If their relay is willing to do the computation for you, right? Like there's all kinds of sort of solutions that you can come up with and do them all, right? Or like based on what's happening. Like, I mean, the reply guy in some of the clients, there is none. Some of the clients is unusable.
Well, in my client, like for example, I was using Gossip, and there's a feature to allow you just pick a bunch of relays that you want to fetch replies from, and these relays don't have the spam. But at the same time, I miss some other replies that are not in these relays. There are other clients that are doing like they download everything and they filter out locally, like Oracle, and they remove the spam based on Web of Trust. stuff. But I don't think that works. Yeah.
I'm also using Gossip, but I'm using it the other way. So I'm seeing all the replies, I believe, but I'm using a spam filter on the client side to filter. So it downloads a lot of stuff. It may download all the reply guy spam, but then it filters it out before I see it.
I mean, we do that. Like, email is unsolved. Like, so I still get a lot of spam, right? Like, and even on I have like this Gmail account that I don't use much. Even Google, like on Google, there's still a lot of spam, right? It's just that they put it in a folder. They still download everything.
No, sometimes it shows up still on your inbox.
Yeah, exactly. So like, there is no like master solution. There's no master node. There's no master client. That's kind of like the point of this, right? That's what like decentralization and freedom looks like. It's a little messy.
Yeah, but there's a problem there because like the email protocol got centralized over time because of spam, right?
Exactly.
And if that's going to happen on Nostr, that's a problem.
I mean, that was their excuse. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can only have 2 trusted through email providers here. Everybody else is not allowed anymore. That was also true with the browser and TLS, right? So, you can no longer self-sign your own HTTPS. Chrome or most browsers will blacklist you, right? It's a huge problem. So, like, now you have to share your keys with the NSA, right? I mean Cloudflare, sorry. And it's concerning, but like the thing about this is like it's not like some conspiracy, and it's also not like out of their good hearts either. It's like it's always a mix, right? Like the incentives are right to take things in a certain direction, right? It's like nobody wants to deal with users' bullshit when they're crying too much about something. So they try to fix it. And most often than not, the easiest solution is to just centralize it, right? Like, I mean, it really is. I mean, there is a reason why the App Store has a lot less hacking apps than the Google Store. And the Google Store, like in phones, are fairly closed down too, but still, like, it's a massive gap there, right? Centralizing is easier, but it doesn't mean we want easier. And I feel like the people we're attracting first to Nostr are the people who are willing to get past the easy part.
And sometimes you KYC your entire user base and you still have spam, like X.
Right? I mean, like, X is insane. Like, the amount, there's more spam there than there is, like, on Nostr. And Nostr is free to create new accounts.
How do they do this? Like, how many phones there exist in the world? Like, they need some unlimited amount of phone numbers to make new accounts.
Yeah, so like there is this farms in China that like they have like hundreds of Android phones connected to a server box via wire, and then they have like software that just automates the clicking into those phones. It's amazing. They're actually using real hardware.
Yeah, I've seen a video that like they actually like the robots actually touch the screen. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So guys, like, where are we going forward now? Like, so in my opinion, maybe I'm a little too optimistic, but like it's working. I'm using it every day. I log in now more on Nostr than I do on Twitter. Fairly active on social media, right? So for me and my companies, it's like it's working. Like it's like it really is. Like, could I use a bigger social graph? Absolutely. We're not there yet, right? Could I use cooler things or whatever? Yes, but like it's kind of working. So what are the things that like you guys are working on now in sort of like the helm of like relays and scaling? We'll address other things in other episodes, but like for the sake of this episode, what are the things that you guys are like excited working on for relays and scaling Nostr?
So from my perspective, it's not so much on the scaling side, but on relays, I see a big push on decommoditizing relays. And I am super excited about that. Relays that do special shade or have very different ways of acting. NIP29 comes to mind, which is simplified groups where the relays have like different policies and crap like that. And I find that design space so vast and so interesting. I'm very excited about the work that is being done on relays on that side.
So to use Fiatjaf's analogy, you're excited about making websites.
Yes, always. The more JavaScript, the better.
Good luck, Pablo. So, Fiatjaf, what are the things you're excited about and working on right now?
Oh, yesterday I saw a guy launch the relay called GM Relay, maybe sponsored by General Motors, but it's just a relay that only takes notes that say GM. It's just a joke, but it's an interesting direction. And today the same guy launched a relay that uses some AI magic to identify pictures, and it only accepts notes that have cat pictures. And this is a thing that I've been talking about from a long time, but it hasn't happened really, which is like the ability to browse specific relays. Like a client should be able to somehow click on a relay, or someone announces a relay to you in a note, and you click that and you see the content that is specific and exclusive to that relay. And the one interesting example is like you're in a conference or some event or some geographic region, and you have access to that relay, and you can see what people are saying in that relay in that context specifically, and that relay vanishes afterwards or not, I don't know. And that can integrate with the rest of the public square. And I'm seeing all these relays showing up right now, and I made some myself, but mine are not as interesting as the GM relay and the cat relay.
Fiatjaf, check my feed right now. Like I just published a note about that.
Is the googly eye relay?
Yeah, the googly eye.
No, but and it's funny, right? Because if you just extrapolate this a little further away, right? And you could have relays that all they do is serve ads, for example, right? So it's a relay that either pays you or there's some other relationship where they serve ads. And maybe they serve bad ads, maybe they serve good ads, and there's an economic incentive for other relays to maybe pull from there and add that to the stuff that they send to you.
Well, yeah, if you have a relay that does some form of curation, like if you want, like you're browsing the recipes kind protocol, sub protocol, and you can get recipes from everybody, but there's one relay or a bunch of relays that do some form of curation that just shows the best recipes, or the best vegan recipes, or the best carnivore recipes, or whatever. And you go there and you browse that relay, and that relay can have a bunch of good notes and one ad.
Yeah.
It's
and it's incredible, right? Because you now have the freedom, right, to choose if you want to see stuff or if you want to subscribe to stuff. It's not like on Twitter that you have no choice. You're going to have to see the dude beating up some other dude with an ad on top of it. Like, there's no choice. You have to see it, right? Like, it's just like pure violence, right? And then right above that, you have to see the political candidate that you don't like. And then just above that, you have to see, it is just this, it's vomit by people you have never knew even existed, and you have no choice. But the thing is, though, if you have choice, you create a much better market, a much more efficient market, right? Because now, if I subscribe to a recipes relay, right, that the guy monetizes by inserting some ads in there, and these ads are reasonable, I'm okay with that, because that's how he's finding some and if it becomes too much, maybe it goes somewhere else, right? Like, there is freedom. Maybe there is relays that have lists of people, and if they are, I don't know, woke or not woke, right? And maybe you can subscribe to that list, and it can help you filter your list, right? Like, if you are of that orthodoxy, right? Like, it is well. That's why I like that bot that Rabo made, right? Like, it's a great. I mean, if people want to have that, that's a good thing. When I have my NCAP, little cozy safe space, where I don't see any communism, right?
That's good, yeah.
It's the freedom is amazing. Mike, what are you working on and you're super excited about building?
I'm working on a few different things. One of the things Fiatjaf said there was that relays, or he'd like to see clients have it so that you could just click on a relay and then browse whatever's going on that. That's gone into gossip. It's not a great user experience yet, because it's called the global feed, and you have to go to your settings to set what relay you want to be looking at. Technically it's there, but it's kind of annoying that you can say, oh, I just want to see everything on this particular relay. So that's cool. More for relay, because there's so many relay implementations now, I wrote a relay tester this is more of a technical thing. I don't know if the listeners of this broadcast care, but it just runs through, this is information for people who are building relays and want to know whether their relay works according to the protocol. And then I think the other thing I'm interested in starting to work on, but I haven't jumped into yet, is tools for managing spam at the relay. Because I've done tools for managing spam at the client, and I think at the relay it's quite different. So I'm going to build sort of like a web interface to a relay that uses we have Fiatjaf started a standard protocol for how to communicate to a relay to do that. So nothing fun like cat pictures from my end of the thing. Sorry.
I'm sure you can come up with a way of sticking cat pictures there somewhere. The internet doesn't work without cat pictures. I really want to see, like, something I haven't seen yet is like a VPS, like a mid-sized VPS provider, like, DigitalOcean or something like that. Like, you press a button and you spin off a relay. That could be something that could help.
There is Nostr1.com, I think it is.
Yeah.
That is exactly that. You choose a subdomain, and I think you can write some type of policies.
Yeah.
Like whitelist or blacklist pubkeys and stuff like that.
Very cool. Has anybody built any IRC bridges or other sort of like fun tech bridges aside from? I know Gleason has worked on the Mastodon pub, so the activity pub integration, right? Actually, how does that work?
Oh, he just has a server that creates one Nostr key for each Mastodon account, and vice versa. He creates a Mastodon account on his Mastodon server for each Nostr key.
Which immediately got banned from a bunch of the Fediverse.
Yeah, the other Mastodon servers are blocking his.
Yeah, that happened to bitcoinhackers.org. It got essentially banned by the whole Fediverse. we had no policy for censorship, so like it was not acceptable. Anyways, very cool, guys. I'm super bullish. I feel like every time we have an influx of users, like the experience is a lot better and things break less. Like I feel like we had a bit of an influx of users just a few weeks ago, and nothing really broke. I mean, from the clients I saw, the relays that talked to me, it was probably like a 2x, like an immediate, like very ramp up 2x in a couple of days, or maybe 3x, and things were just working. So there's a lot of work to be done, but things seem to be working. We're coming up close to the top of the hour now. Any final thoughts, Mike?
Nothing comes to mind for me.
That's great. Pablo.
Yeah, I mean, like you said a couple of times, things are working. I think the whole scaling of relays and all that is concern trolling. It's all FUD that is pointless. It's just academics trying to preemptively solve a non-existent problem just because they're coming at it with like completely the wrong lens. Is exactly the same as the people that want to just fucking lower the Bitcoin block time to like 1 second. It's a non-problem that doesn't require a solution.
Yeah. Fiatjaf.
I don't know. I just want to say that we need more weird relays.
It's happening.
No, that's a good call to action there.
I think the problem has been that clients have treated relays like this background thing and completely obfuscated that. So that made running a specialized relay really pointless.
Yeah.
Like literally there is no point. And I think the tooling is coming around where you can interact with a relay in a more direct manner so that specialized relays can flourish much more.
Yeah, it's today, like if you want to make a specialized relay like yours, the eyes wanna or the cat stuff, I think people are doing now is like they fetch nodes from a bunch of relays and populate their own relay. So they do some kind of curation with data that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
We need some way like with better integrated tooling in the clients, we can have like the people naturally posting stuff to these relays instead of the relay itself fetching stuff from other places. And I think that will work better.
Somebody needs to make Yahoo Pipes for Nostr. Seriously. It was one of the coolest things to experiment with, like, the early days of APIs that were open and RSS feeds and other stuff. Like, websites were a lot more open in those days. So like we need a cool little
Give some examples, maybe not now.
yeah, I'll give you some. But yeah, people should look into that, and like some crazy brain, galaxy brain could go there and build some cool Yahoo Pipes for Nostr, so that you can put googly eyes on cats and then release them as podcasts. You know? But really, like with DVMs and things, like things get pretty crazy.
It looks a lot like DVMs. It's just input processing and outputs. It's a lot like the DVM model.
Yes, and it was very visual. Like people use that. Like even middle managers in companies use that. It was very common. Anyways, guys, listen. Thank you so much. This was super helpful. We're gonna record a few more, and hopefully we're gonna have a dozen soon, and we're gonna release these.
Let's fucking go.
And then when anybody asks who's gonna build the roads, we post a link.
At least we slow them by 1 hour.
Or 12 if they listen to all. It's a very powerful tool. Here's my evergreen response.
Shut up, bitch.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Mike. Nice chatting.
Thank you, Miguel.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.